recently finished reading a book by my favourite author. It is Mason and Dixon by Thomas Pynchon. Look at that, it's 773 pages. Yes.
I thought you were pulling out Gravity's Rainbow first, because it's a very similar design, isn't it?
Yeah, they're all the same design, just have different stuff on the front. They're part of the Thomas Pynchon Vintage series. So Mason and Dixon has a weird place in Pynchon's scale. So a little bit about Pynchon first, I suppose. So Thomas Pynchon is probably best known now for being the author of the book Inherent Vice, which was turned into a
flop film.
A flop film, which is to say the least controversial. I enjoy the film, but I don't think it's a very good Pynchon adaptation. The problem is that what Pynchon does in print, in like pages, like
can't be replicated in film.
It can't be replicated at all, to the point where it just comes off as a confusing mess. I enjoy the film, but I can definitely see why people hate the film. I recently rewatched it, and I still enjoyed it and liked it, but I can definitely see that it is a gigantic mess in terms of plot. And you see, because the problem is that when obviously you've got something that's written down, you can take your time with it and you can explore more things.
Well, that's it. When you have something that's quite freeform, like Thomas Pynchon, it just reads off. It's hard to describe, but you can almost just read off a page. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you form the images in your head and all that kind of stuff. And
yeah. So when it's turned into a film, it doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what he's most famous now. But he's a legendary writer. He's seen as being. We've mentioned the big three. There's the big four of modern literature, which are Pynchon, Cormac McCarthy, Philip Roth, and Don DeLillo. They're seen as being like the top writers.
Well, Thomas Pynchon is described as either being like the best author in the world or the worst author in the world, depending on who you ask.
Yeah. Yes.
I've not read any of his books, but I tried reading Gravity's Rainbow, and I couldn't do it.
Yes.
I couldn't do it. I'm trying to find the entry novel.
Yeah. This is the one. This one.
Okay.
Right,
I'll borrow it from you then.
You should borrow it because it is incredible. So basically, Pynchon is famous for writing these long, which this actually is, sort of unwieldy novels. They're full of references and jokes and songs, and they're basically almost the hardest ones. Like Gravity's Rainbow is not the most difficult. The most difficult one's called Against the Day.
I just couldn't read Gravity's Rainbow
because of how dense the language was.
I just couldn't. I didn't get what he was going for.
Oh.
Like I don't mind the whole frame form thing. You know, something like Ulysses or something like that.
It's better than Ulysses.
Yeah, but I can read that kind of stuff, but I didn't get it. I don't get what he was going for. I didn't get anything from it.
All right. I love Gravity's Rainbow. I think it's one of it's often seen as being like the best novel of post World War II.
With books, I'm not as into the alternative writing style.
Okay.
Well, it's hard to describe because books is something I've not really spent as much time exploring as I have done with like music or film or TV or even video games. So when it comes to the alternative stuff, I'm like, I'm ready for something weird and bizarre and confusing. With books, I'm a little bit different.
Okay.
I must admit, when it comes to a novel or a book, I do like to have some kind of narrative through line.
Okay.
So I can kind of read it and understand it.
This is why Mason Dixon's so good. So I'll do a bit of background. So basically, Thomas Pynchon made three what are seen as classic novels in the 60s, which were V, The Crying of Lot 49, and Gravity's Rainbow. Then he disappeared for 17 years and came back with a novel called Vineland. Vineland is, it's not his best novel, but it's actually got a bit of acclaim now because the main character is seen as an inspiration for the dude in The Big Lebowski.
Oh yeah.
He's a faded hippie living in the 80s, sort of living like in the past. So some bounds there. But and then he made Mason and Dixon. The plot of Mason and Dixon is one's a land surveyor, the other's like an astronomer. One of them, it's Mason. Charles Mason is gothic and depressed because his beloved wife Rebecca's died. Dixon is a gregarious Geordie who goes around like looking for adventure. And they get commissioned to make the Mason-Dixon line in America, which is a line that divides Philadelphia and somewhere else. It's basically seen as being a dividing line between the North and South. So they were real people, and this all like that happened, and it's set between the Age of Reason. The whole novel is narrated by a character called the Reverend Cherrycoke. who tells his young sibling, who tells like his cousins the story of Mason and Dixon. He was like he was a reverend who went along with them. He was told by it to spread like I think the word of like Christianity around the ship and things, and to be like a spiritual guide. So that's basically the novel. That's the through line of the novel. The reason why this novel I think is his strongest one. This is actually the most acclaimed one. Gravity's Rainbow has a stronger literary like reputation because it's seen as being like one of the definitive classics of sort of post-war literature, because it basically invented a lot of postmodernist techniques, and is like it's just seen as like it's basically the modern Ulysses. Like it's incredibly dense and hard to read, but its critical standing is huge. But it's seen as impenetrable, and like, have you ever tried to read Ulysses?
Yeah.
It's a nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just unreadable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But Thomas Pynchon's novels are more like there's short stories in there, and there's jokes and songs and things. I find they're far more accessible than that, I think. Even though you found it difficult because there wasn't any fruit.
I couldn't get anything from it.
Yeah. Well, the reason Mason and Dixon's better is because it's got the through line of Mason and Dixon trying to form the line. So there's always one story that's being told.
Yeah,
and basically what happens is everywhere they go, adventures happen to them. And the themes are from there, but it actually has something that's going forwards.
Okay.
Another reason why it's stronger is that the lead characters of Mason and Dixon are much stronger than Tyrone Slothrop from Gravity's Rainbow. They're just nice guys. When was the last time there was a modern book that was great about nice guys? They're all anti-heroes, aren't they? And ciphers, but they're nice guys. Like Dixon is like a great character. He's like a really happy, gregarious Geordie lad who goes around having like high adventures as they go out. And Mason's, as I say, he's depressed because his wife's died and he can't get on with his sons. So there's the contrast between the two characters, and as they go along, how they change and things throughout the story is what gives it sort of its emotional resonance, which is something that the worst Pynchon books don't have, like an emotional. Like the problem is that sometimes it feels in the worst ones as if he's just like using it as an excuse for themes and jokes and stuff like that, rather than telling a story.
Okay.
Like it's just like an excuse to do all this weird stuff. But all the weird stuff in Mason and Dixon comes naturally out of it from the story. Like there's a bit in the second chapter where they encounter a character called the Learned English Dog, who is a dog that has learned to talk, and he talks to people and like earns his keep like that. And the reason the talking dog has evolved to talk, in his words, is because dogs don't get eaten by people because of their likeness to people. Like, they're called like man's best friend. And
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And he's learned to talk in order to save himself and keep himself alive, and to he talks to people so they won't eat him. It's a brilliant idea.
Okay.
This dog, it's a talking dog. He's a great character. He sings a song, and he talks to people, but also feeds into the main theme, which is that Mason and Dixon is set at a time between the age of reason and the age of religion and deism. So it's all about the difference between the earlier ways where people would just believe in gods and things, and Mason and Dixon, they're like a land surveyor and an astronomer. That's like an astronomer is a job where you're defining the planets and stars and things, where you'd assume you'd be more scientifically minded. And Dixon's a Quaker as well. So there's all this contrast between the religions that they encounter and them trying to sort of get more of a scientific viewpoint. And all the characters they meet are either like people who believe in religion or believe in science. Like they meet Thomas Edison at one point.
Oh, really?
And he's portrayed as a rock star. Like he's invented his own pair of sunglasses, and he's going around being like a Jimmy Plant of
Jimmy Plant.
Not Jimmy Plant. What's Jimmy Page of like?
That's like the amalgamation of Jimmy Page and Robert Plant.
That's how awesome he is in this novel. I'm
okay. That does sound pretty cool, actually. I'm not embarrassed with me.
You should. It's amazing. No, it's far easier to read than Gravity's Rainbow.
Yeah, I mean that's just something like that. Even just like that through line.
Yeah.
Even just something, just that.
Yeah.
Just that. I can hold on to that.
Yeah. There are stunning moments in it. It's a great novel and all because it's about I can't believe how much we're talking about racism today. But
we're really fired up today. About
slavery in America. And it makes all these varied points about capitalism and slavery. What happens is that because Mason's so poor, because he's essentially like a wage slave being sent by the government to it, he has to essentially sell his children to his granddad his children to his dad in order to pay for his expedition out. So it makes the comparison constant between all these different forms of slavery that essentially keeps sort of like the capitalist machine running. Like, and obviously there is actual slavery in the novel. Like, constantly they go around encountering slaves and slave owners. There's a stunning section where they stop at this house, right? And it's like a house in France. And the woman that owns it has 3 nubile teenage daughters who keep coming on to Dixon. And then what happens is they deny Dixon sex, and then they send the slave up to have sex with him. And then it's really harrowing. Because it's treated as a joke at first that there's these like young, like nubile women that are coming on to him. But then it turns out that the slave owning mother is getting basically Dixon to try and rape the slave in order so the slave will have a lighter skinned child, which will get more money at auction, which is something that actually happened.
Oh my god!
Like, and it makes all these valid points, but it's hilarious to read the beginning bit. Like, as each teenage daughter starts coming on to him, it's really funny, and then as it goes on and it becomes obvious what's happening, it becomes more and more disturbing. Like, he doesn't do anything, because as I say, he's a decent guy in the novel, but it makes these points constantly about how like people are using other people and how, because it's all about essentially the birth of modern America. And like capitalism, like every character they encounter has a slave or is a slave owner or does things like that, and they're like constantly throughout they're just affronted by things that offend them as people. And you can see sort of also the beginnings of like the Civil War and like the War of Independence going on throughout the novel, because of the differences between like their point of view and theirs. And there's constant bits where characters are talking about how they hate the English at points and things, and they have to like in
it's set like what, like
1700s.
So it's still a British colony.
I believe so. Yeah, it's quite a dense book. You have to read. I've read it twice now. The first time this is really stupid, but I had a book and like when you got 500 pages in, the pages were folded over so you couldn't read them, so I had to buy it again. So I got 500 pages in and just threw the book on the floor, and it's great. But yeah, it's funny, it's moving. Like the ending is amazing. Like when they finish their journey, they sort of separate and meet up every year to go fishing, and just how heartrending it is that you've spent like 700 pages with these characters. And then, like, you know, like they're going to the end of their lives. Not a spoiler, because it begins with the Reverend at Mason's grave tending to it. So you know right from the beginning that they're both going to die. And also they're obviously real people.
Yeah, naturally, yes.
Yeah. So, you know, at the end it's so moving as well. To get that from a Thomas Pynchon novel seems quite rare after...
This sounds great then. This sounds like the kind of thing I'd be looking for then.
It's like,
really
it's a cross between the sort of denser stuff and like a buddy comedy.